The night of the prom was supposed to be the most magical evening of her high school life, but for Emily Hart, it started with a trembling hand clutching the edge of her worn dress and ended with cruel laughter echoing in her ears. Emily wasn't the type of girl who lived in the spotlight. She was quiet, soft-spoken, the kind who sat in the back of the classroom and blended into the background like a shadow. She kept her head low, her hair tucked around her face, her notebooks perfectly neat as though organization was her only shield against the chaos around her. She was intelligent, even gifted, but no one cared to notice. In her school, what mattered was appearance, wealth, and popularity. Emily had none of these. For months leading up to prom, Emily had been secretly hoping for a miracle, that maybe anyone would see her worth and ask her to the dance. But when the night came closer, she gathered every ounce of courage she had and decided to ask someone herself. That someone was Ryan Hale, the captain of the football team, golden-haired, sharp-jawed, and adored by everyone. Her friends, or rather acquaintances who sometimes tolerated her presence, had warned her not to try. They said he was untouchable, way out of her league. But Emily, with her heart pounding like a drum in her chest, thought that if she didn't try, she would regret it forever. So, in the quiet of the gym before practice, she approached him. Her voice quivered as she asked, "Ryan, would you go to prom with me?" For a split second, she saw a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, as though he didn't know how to answer. But then his friends, Chad, Lucas, and Derek, the notorious bullies of the school, burst out laughing in the background. They slapped Ryan on the back, mocking the very idea. "The shy little mouse with you." "No way, man," Chad jeered. Ryan, unwilling to look weak in front of his friends, smirked cruelly and said, "Sorry, Emily, but no thanks. I don't dance with shadows." The sting of rejection burned her cheeks, but worse was the laughter that followed. She ran away before the tears could spill, her small hope shattered into pieces. She could have lived with rejection, she had lived with worse. But what came after was cruelty she had never imagined. At prom night, when the gymnasium glowed with shimmering lights and everyone was dressed in satin and silk, Emily walked in alone. She wore a pale blue dress she had borrowed from her aunt, one that wasn't expensive or new, but made her feel, at least for a moment, like she belonged. She had rehearsed smiling in the mirror, telling herself she could just blend in and enjoy the night. But the bullies had other plans. Chad, Lucas, and Derek spotted her the moment she walked in. Their grins widened like wolves scenting prey. They whispered to each other and soon their laughter spread. Emily tried to ignore them. She went to the punch table, poured herself a drink, and sat quietly near the edge of the gym. But the bullies wouldn't let her fade into the background. They circled her like predators. Chad leaned down with his towering frame and sneered, Well, the prom queen finally showed up. Where's your date, Emily?" "Oh wait, you don't have one," the others roared with laughter. Emily's fingers tightened on her cup, her throat tightening, but she stayed silent. She had always stayed silent, but silence wasn't enough for them. It never was. They needed spectacle. They needed humiliation. And so, in the middle of the dance floor, as the music thumped and the lights swirled, they cornered her. Chad grabbed her arm. Lucas yanked her shoulder, and before Emily could scream, Derek reached out and with one swift tug, he ripped her shirt at the neckline, tearing the fabric loud enough for the music to pause and the crowd to gasp. Time seemed to stop. Emily froze, her arms wrapping around herself in instinct, her face flushing crimson as every eye in the gym locked onto her. Some students covered their mouths in shock. Others laughed cruelly, their phones already raised to capture the moment. Ryan stood nearby, looking uneasy but saying nothing, too cowardly to intervene. The bullies grinned, proud of their show. Wes, the shy girl, wanted attention after all. Derek shouted, holding a piece of the torn fabric like a trophy. The laughter was deafening. Emily's heart pounded so hard she thought it might explode. She had spent years trying to be invisible, years swallowing pain, years hiding her strength. But something inside her snapped in that instant. The humiliation seared her soul like fire. Tears blurred her vision, but beneath the tears was rage. White-hot, unstoppable rage. Emily slowly lowered her arms, her trembling stopped, her breathing slowed. She looked at the bullies, her eyes sharp, no longer the eyes of a shy girl, but of someone who had been pushed too far. She straightened her back, revealing not weakness but unshakable resolve. The crowd didn't know. The bullies didn't know. No one at that school knew that Emily had spent the last 7 years training in martial arts under her uncle, a former combat instructor. Her uncle had taught her discipline, patience, and power. He had told her never to use her skills unless it was the last resort, unless she had no other choice. Tonight, they had left her no choice. Chad smirked, mistaking her silence for fear. He leaned in again, taunting, "What's the matter? Shay girl, cat got your tongue?" That was the moment. Emily's foot moved so fast, no one saw it coming. With a single pivot of her hips, she launched a roundhouse kick that connected squarely with Chad's chest. The impact was like a thunderclap. Chad's massive body flew backward, crashing into a table of food and collapsing it in an explosion of snacks and drinks. The entire gym erupted in gasps and screams. Lucas lunged forward in shock, but Emily turned, her stance firm, her eyes blazing. "Try me," she said, her voice steady and sharp. Lucas hesitated, then charged anyway. Emily sidestepped, sweeping his legs with a swift kick that dropped him flat onto the floor, his head narrowly missing the polished gym surface. Derek froze, the grin wiped off his face. He raised his hands as if to surrender, but his fear came too late. Emily stepped closer, her gaze piercing into him, and the crowd fell utterly silent. The shy girl was gone. The shadow was gone. What stood in the center of the gym was a storm unleashed. And as everyone watched, stunned into silence, Emily whispered, "You wanted attention. Now you have it." The bullies, once untouchable, now lay sprawled and broken in front of the very people they had ruled over with fear. The crowd was shocked, some whispering in awe, others cheering wildly. Phones that had been raised to mock her were now recording her victory, immortalizing the moment she transformed from victim to warrior. But Emily didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply turned, lifted her chin, and walked out of the gym, her torn dress swaying, her footsteps echoing with power. Behind her, whispers turned to chants. Some students followed her with wide eyes, murmuring, "Did you see that? Emily just took them down." The night that was supposed to break her had instead awakened her, and the school would never see her the same way again.